Hello, Internet, and welcome back to the Parallax Scrolling Podcast. I am Matt Finish.
And I'm Monster Punter.
And we are glad you're here. I know it's a little bit of a different intro, kind of trying something fresh, trying something different. So, how you doing?
Doing tired, working an awful lot. A lot like last week. But, just been trying to play through some of my games.
Yeah.
Bowling average going down. And, hopefully getting some more time to play some games somewhere, some way.
Yeah. It's important to try and get it in there. I don't know if I mentioned this. I don't think I mentioned this before. So first off, I've dumped Rise Eterna. I got to I'm near the end of the game and I'm like, I can't anymore, man. Like
You just decided.
I got the big story reveal. I'm like, that's stupid. And then right after that, started trying to play the game. After the big reveal, there's a difficulty spike, like a massive difficulty spike. I'm like, I just wanted to play this game. I just wanted to, $2. Didn't think I was gonna have a headache. So I'm not upset because it's $2 and I'm not missing out on much. But probably the biggest annoyance in that game is the trap tiles. There's
no way to know where they are.
You can't tell where they are ever. And you just, you decided to walk this direction. Oops, there's a trap tile. How about a class that can detect the trap tile?
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been weird, huh? So yeah, no, it felt like a rushed game at that point. So I put it down, but I actually picked up a different game in its place. And I'm so glad I did.
What game is that?
Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark.
Never heard of it.
It's on the sale. I don't know how much longer it's gonna be on the sale, but it's on the sale. I think it was like $7.50. Steal. It's a steal. It's $7.50. It plays like Final Fantasy Tactics in that you have the job system. You have to control what direction your character's facing because you have side attacks, back attacks, front. But it's actually nuanced and the story's interesting and like I can say all this now because I've been through about 7 maps, and I've actually fought like one of the like to compare it to Tactics. I fought one of the Zodiac Braves already, so it's like cool, and there's a guild progression. Like you go to the guild and you can recruit people and you can customize the way the person looks, which is really awesome. But on top of that, you can build up the guilds and the guilds get bonuses depending on what they do. And on top of that, they have missions. So let's say I want to put the game down for the night, right? I can send all my available non-story related units on missions. And they will come back when I pick up the game again, and they'll be like, "Hey, we did this job. Here's some experience. Here's some job points. Here's some, here's some money. Here's random things we found." I'm like, "That's awesome. That's an awesome concept." And you can go back and replay any map. Like it's called patrolling the area. You go back to all the battle maps, you can patrol them, and you fight on those maps. But the layout's different every time.
The only game I've played that was new to me is BattleTech on PC, which is a lot closer to the actual BattleTech board game.
Yeah.
One of the things that almost caught me in the beginning was you start with 1 million C-bills, and I was looking at all the mechs available, and one of them was a Marauder for 900,000 C-bills, and I'm thinking to myself, I'd like a Marauder.
Everyone wants a Marauder.
I'd like a Marauder. But I didn't buy it because I knew I needed my money for like upkeep and things like that.
Yeah.
It turns out when you get salvage in that game, when you complete a map and you're getting salvage, you don't get mechs. You get parts of mechs. So if I had dumped all my C-bills into buying part of that Marauder, I wouldn't have a Marauder, and I'd be out of C-bills and basically bankrupt right at the beginning of the game. And so, yeah. But the last mission I did was they offered 3 salvage points for a Shadowhawk. and you need 3 salvage points to get the Shadowhawk, and I'm like, I will take a Shadowhawk.
I will take the awesome thank you.
So that's what I did, and it's fun.
That actually that reminds me of I don't know if you ever played the old Super Nintendo game. I think it was Mechwarrior. It was just called Mechwarrior. Or it was Battletech.
Yes, I did play that once
the one
upon a
where
time.
it was like all first person.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dude, that game was so brutally hard.
It was, but
just to start, just to get out the gate was difficult. But once you did, the game actually was pretty cool.
But circa 1993, that was the only BattleTech you had. In fact,
yeah.
I don't even know. I can't think of one that was on PC at the time. Eventually, I know Mechwarrior.
Mech Commander was the one. Yeah,
Mech Commander is the one that's a lot like your real-time strategy games.
Yeah.
The Mechwarrior came out, I want to say 94, 95, and then the Mechwarrior 2 came out in 96, and that was the one that was really huge. That was actually on PlayStation and Sega Saturn and that too, in addition to the PC.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, we actually do have our lists ready. We're ready to go. And like I said last week, if you have your top 10 lists, please put them in the comments. Let us know what's going on. We kind of want to know what your games are. But speaking of comments, this is where Matt answers the comment section. Okay. I couldn't think of something. I had to think of something.
Oh my God, that was bad.
Yeah, I know. Particularly... one comment because I had a question and wanted to answer it. Tom stated, Infernax looks like a great indie Metroidvania. Have you tried Cathedral? No, but it's been on my radar for a while. Because I've actually looked at it, I'm like, oh, that looks kind of neat.
It does look pretty good.
Yeah. So I definitely, like I said, it's on my radar. It's something I'll probably play eventually. I don't know about right now. I guarantee you, if we're doing a top 10 JRPG list, and we're going to do other top 10s in the future, there's probably going to be a top 10 Metroidvania list coming from me.
I may not have 10.
Yeah, you may not have 2. But...
I have 2.
Okay. Metroid, Super Metroid.
No. Actually, I wouldn't even put a Metroid on the top Metroidvanias.
Yes.
Because although I did beat the first one on Nintendo once upon a time,
yeah.
I never played Super Metroid or any Metroid since, really, to be honest.
We have to have you do that. At least Super. We got to play. You got to get you through Super. I think.
We'll see.
It's an awesome experience. I want you, and I tell you what, because I've played it enough, especially because of the randomizers I did, that I want to play it once with you, where you just go through and play how you think the game should go, and then when you go, I want you to play a second time through, and the second time through, I'll show you where all the hidden stuff is. You'll be like, oh, I didn't know that power-up was there. Yeah, because you wouldn't think of it.
Okay,
so,
well, we'll see.
But anyways, yeah. So, Tom, I have not played Cathedral. It has been on my radar. I look forward to playing it. But I'm also looking forward to playing The Last Faith. If you have not heard of The Last Faith, from what it looks like, hey, what if we took Bloodborne and made a Metroidvania out of it? It looks amazing. So, yeah. Anyhow, that's the comments for today. If you guys got questions, and again, if you want your top 10 list, put your top 10 lists in the comments. But if you got questions for us, you want us to answer them on the podcast, put them in the comments. We want to know what's going on. So, okay. Top 10 JRPGs of all time.
Our personal opinions, of course.
Right. And I guess a couple things we should say first. One, these are games we have played and beaten. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they've already been out, so that's covered. These are not in a particular order,
especially not in any particular order.
Yeah, because there's. I got a list, man, and oh my gosh, it took forever to whittle it down to 10, but these are not in any particular order. We're going to go off of them. Some of these, like I have them currently ranked. These are not the way they're going to stay in my brain because it's already shifted from when I wrote these down the first time. So, with that said, I'm going to let you take the lead. What is your first game on your list?
Well, why don't I start with one of the last ones that I completed again?
Oh, okay.
It was one that was lost to me for a long time, and it ended up showing up on the PlayStation Store for $3. So I decided to jump on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a PS2 remake, and on the PS4/PS5 you get enhanced graphics a little bit, things like that, and that's Rogue Galaxy.
Okay. Rogue Galaxy's great. I love Rogue Galaxy.
Rogue Galaxy is a really good one. You're going to between multiple worlds. It starts out with Jaster Rogue wanting to be a bounty hunter, and a monster attacks their hometown, and he's ultimately thrown into this crew that's traveling to outer space. And it's this ragtag bunch of people who are really, really weird with a robot that's supposed to have soul of a boy in it. You got this little guy who's like really weird looking, but you learn why he's got like a mask and everything on later on. And it turns into this big intergalactic story where, you know, the world could be coming to an end, and I thought it was really fun. The combat is real time, but it's when you see the enemy, you'll go into a separate screen. Well, not really a separate screen, but you go into a fight mechanic. So it's not like an action RPG exactly in that case.
Yeah.
You're still fighting the enemies as you encounter them. So as you go on, you find out who Desert Claw is, who helps you in the beginning, and the crew on the Dorgan is just great. And
yeah. No, I think even the weapon synthesis system in that game is fantastic.
Having the frog eat and spit out new weapons, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, just like, let's make sure the conveyor belt goes around in a circle before we do. Yeah, it's like, yeah. It's actually funny. So you put that on your list. I did put, and the reason why I didn't put something like that on my list is because my brain relegated it to an action RPG, so I didn't put action RPGs on my list at all. I went for what is a turn-based JRPG list. So, this one, I'm just going to go in my order because I figure that's the fun way to do it. This one, you probably see coming, but probably don't.
I saw it coming. I see your list.
Cheater! No, you saw the first one. You didn't see the last one. I had
angle, fine.
I had an angle specifically to hide it from you.
Oh, okay.
This game, I guarantee you most Westerners have not played it. Mainly because most people didn't have the system, which was a shame. 4. The Neo Geo Pocket Color. Bio Motor Unitron. Now, Biomotor Unitron, not exactly the most gorgeous game. Like, it's not graphically impressive.
Oh, not at all.
The soundtrack is, because you're on the Neo Geo Pocket Color. You only have like 2 colors maybe, and like a very limited soundtrack. But the game revolves around you, a mech builder who builds robots, and you go into dungeons and you fight monsters. And my dude, I love that game so bad. like you have no idea how badly I've been trying to find a copy. Like, I know you have a copy. I want to have my own personal copy, but I also want to have a way to play it. So I've been trying to look for So, if I want the physical copy, I want to have, that ROM that I can play on a bigger screen.
I have the opposite problem. I have the game, but I forgot where my system went.
But anyway, so you can equip the robot with different parts, and depending on what you equip, different attacks and effects happen. And it's just an amazing game. And it harkened me back to another Super Nintendo game, an old one, called Robotrek, which was much more cutesy, much more kiddie, but it was about a guy who controls robots, and you built the robots a certain way by putting certain parts on, and then they had different attacks in battle based on that. So just that concept was so lovely. I had so much fun with it. So that's why that's at the bottom of my list, because the next rest of them are definitely outclassed this game. But this one has a special place in my heart.
So when I decided to put together my list, when it came to game series, I decided to just pick one out of that game series.
Yeah, me too.
And go with it, or else my list might comprise of several games of one series, and what kind of fun is that?
Yeah, exactly.
So I went with another really recent one.
Okay.
This game was one that, when it originally debuted on the PlayStation, I was not the biggest fan of. In fact, the sequel to this game I liked better than the one I'm going to mention. And
why would you go with the sequel then? Because
the remake is just that good. Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
And I think they've done an excellent job with the remake.
The remake is amazing.
It's really, really good. Like, I thought 7 was okay for the most part. I actually almost beat that game. I couldn't put it on this list if I wanted to. I didn't beat the game. I got to the entrance to the last dungeon. I even had Knights of the Round and everything. Ooh. And I didn't go and kill Sephiroth. I just didn't finish the game. I think I still have my save if I find my memory card lying around someplace. I don't have a PlayStation to put it in. I got a friggin' memory card. And... Oh, I take that back. I have my PS2.
There you go.
But I just never had the will to actually beat it. I might have actually beat Emerald and Ruby Weapon even.
Ooh.
So I was like doing everything.
Yeah.
And then I was going to go finish it off, and
that's what I did.
Just never did. And yeah, but the new remake, the reimagining of the story, the fact that it's deeper, that the whole first game you could spend 40 hours just in Midgard, doing all the events in Midgard, expanding on character stories that are there, not to mention just the graphics and everything. It's just great.
I think if you look at it, Final Fantasy VII, still a great game. It's still a great game. Not gonna bash it, but there's a lot happening in those 3 discs. There's a lot going on. And honestly, when you leave Midgard, it is like a massive, jarring juxtaposition, I think, between what you were playing and what you're going into. Like, this was like, this is like a cyber future, science fiction fantasy game. And then you walk out and you literally touch grass. You're like, wait a minute. This is a Final Fantasy game. Time to walk through the woods, and here's a random fight. Which, again, still great. But there was just a lot going on in that game. And for Remake to actually say, no, what we're going to do is we're not even discounting what happened. We're not discounting Final Fantasy VII at all. This is not a rewrite.
Well, it could end up being.
Well, I mean, it's... Let me say it a different way. It is not a remaster of the game. Like, it's not like we just polished it up and spat it back out. They acknowledge the original 3 discs, but they're saying, hey, guess what? We're altering the timeline. Something's going on. Something's messing up, and it's actually a different story. It's going to be a different story now, and that's fantastic. And that's a really good selection to put on this list. I actually had trouble. I didn't put it on my list. I thought about it. But again, I followed your rule of 1 game per series because I thought the same thing. Like, I want to be a varied person. So that's not on my list. But that's a good pick.
So what's your next one?
Okay. My next one is the one that started the series. That started the passion. That started the fire. Shining in the Darkness.
Okay.
Because it is the beginning. It is what sets in motion all the Shining Force games, all the Shining Gaiden games. If there's a game out there that you're playing that starts with Shining, it came from this game. All the characters matter, all the story choices, everything that happens in the story has significance. You can actually miss stuff by not going down the right part of the dungeon. It is a very it's a very pretty game for being on the Genesis. It's a very simple game in terms of mechanics, but it pulls you in. It has such a great job of pulling you in, and then just learning what the villain is and learning how it progresses throughout the universe, and then again carrying that into Shining Force, which is a tactical RPG, which was not what we're covering. But going into that series and just watching how this little story, this little nugget of information just blossoms. It's got to start from somewhere, and I had to put this on my list.
So imagine 11-year-old me playing Shining in the Darkness. The graphics for its time were top-notch. I remember being blown away by them. And then I got into the dungeon. And at first, it's like, this is kind of neat. It's really smooth. It's really cool looking. Everything kind of looks the same. I'm not trying to say it's a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but there are some... This is a classic game that shows quality of life improvements we've had in video games over the course of video games.
Oh, absolutely.
Is huge. Because in that game, you had to use an item to look at the map, and you had to buy that item. I can't remember the name of the item, but once you used it, you got to see the map, and then that was it.
You were given the map as an item, part of the story. Because you're like, you like, here, go to the castle. Here's your map to get to the castle. Oh, cool, thanks.
Well, no, I'm just like inside, like trying to figure out where you're at, where you're in the dungeon and actually going around.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yes, okay.
And it's still a good game.
Yeah.
But there were I got to the trial of strength or wisdom or something like that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out what to do, and I didn't know where to go, and the fights are random, so it's not like modern games where you kill all the monsters in an area, then you can run around freely and it doesn't matter.
Right.
You're running low on gear, running low on items, and you're still being pursued by all these monsters because of the random fights. And that's ultimately where I left the game.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, man, I went through it, man, and I even tried to do it on the channel, but at the time I just had the physical copy, so I got a ROM, and my ROM was corrupted, so I couldn't continue. Obviously, I've gotten a digital copy since then, but it's like, well, what's the purpose of going back on the channel? But I've gone through this game, and it's solid. It's beautiful in its simplicity. You are right, though. Like, there are points where you're just like, okay, I've been down this hallway before. And turns out, no, I haven't. It just looks exactly like every other hallway. There is some palette changes, as you go through, but when you go down a certain floor, like level of the floor, and you see, it's a red brick hallway. The entire dungeon is a red brick hallway.
Yeah.
But they had to do that because of cartridge limitations.
No, at the time, yeah, I get that it was
right. But I'm just saying
limitations of the hardware at the time. It's just,
yeah.
I think now with the advent of the internet, has made that game better.
Yeah, actually, I would love to see if Sega and Treasure will do it. I would love to see a remaster or a remake, so to speak, of Shining in the Darkness. I would love to see what that would look like.
How often does Treasure redo their things, though? Treasure is one of the great gaming industry houses of
I know.
my life.
I'm still trying to hassle them about Shining Force 3. Like, just port the whole thing over, please. But yeah, no.
They'd have my money.
I know, and mine. But yeah, so that's my second one on my list. What's your third?
I'm gonna go with a game that was actually a really good juxtaposition to the one I just said.
Yeah.
And came out as a counter to Final Fantasy VII on the Sega Saturn in Japan. So while everybody was going nuts over Final Fantasy VII in Japan, Sega and Game Arts released this game.
Sonic RPG.
Oh gosh, no. Wait, that might be the only genre they haven't put a Sonic in. But Mario, there's more Mario miscellaneous ones than anything else.
Right. No, sorry, go ahead. What's your
And honestly, in my opinion, was better than the old Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII, and that is Grandia.
Oh, good call.
I recently got that again. I still have my PlayStation copy. And while the voice acting is horrible, the game is awesome. And the music is great. The fighting mechanics are unlike any other game that you'll play, where you can elect to do 2 attacks or you can do a cancel hit. So if you see an enemy charging up to do a move, you can have, if your character can act fast enough, go up there and cancel it.
I think I still have my PlayStation copy of Grandia. Oh, I love the Grandia.
But that game was great, and
I love the, hey, let's combine the elements to make spells. Like, pick which, like if you do the certain element combinations right, you do different things. So I was like, I like that.
I think because if you level them up, they'll do stuff. But with Justin and Fina, not Fina, it starts with another F, but their adventure, and you find out that she's one of the ancients, and the whole story and how it unfolds, and coming of age and things like that. It's great, and I think if you haven't played it yet, they re-released it on the Nintendo Switch, and I strongly suggest, if you like RPGs, to go pick that up.
Yeah. I'm also realizing now that you've said that, I am making a live alteration to my list for something that has yet to be revealed, but I'm going to add it. Anyways, so you got Grandia. Okay.
Yep.
My next game. Give me a second. No. Super Mario RPG, let me tell you what it means to me.
No. I didn't own a Super Nintendo growing up, so all those...
Yeah, no, so I was going to say, well, that's what makes
there's a distinct lack of Super Nintendo in my list.
Well, there's a difference on our list, that's why, because I grew up with that more than... Like, my brother had the Genesis, I had the Super Nintendo, so, we grew different. Anyhow, Super Mario RPG, yeah, of course it's going to be on this list. It's got to be on this list. But not for the reasons everyone thinks. Like, yes, I love the story. Yes, I love the gameplay mechanics. It's fantastic. The graphics are great for a Super Nintendo game. Squaresoft did a really good job with it.
I think it was one of the first 32 megabit carts for the Super Nintendo.
I think so.
I mean, which was huge at the time and made it very expensive.
Yeah. But the thing that... And the reason why it was such a great game to me, 2 big reasons in my mind. One, you get more of the Mario universe. You get a better understanding of the Mario universe other than just, we run around and we jump and hit blocks and things. It was, you had a better progression and a better understanding of the world of what they were trying to actually create originally. Second reason, the best reason, the baddest reason. It's the first time you ever got to play as Bowser. Ever. In Super Mario yet. And not only did you get to play as him, he was a boss. Like, he was awesome. He had, like, he used his claws, and like he had, like, it was called the drill claw. So, like, he would, like, slash with his, like, left hand, and then with his right hand he would just spin his hand, and it was a drill attack because it was so sharp. Or he attacked with a chain chomp. He, like, started swinging it around wildly and throwing it at people. It was freaking awesome. But still, this game was fantastic. I don't understand why Nintendo didn't follow this through. And let me clarify that. They went to Paper Mario and did that Paper Mario shtick, which I'm sure works. I haven't
played the Paper Mario games.
I never really got into them. I never really saw it, and I was like, Go back to a 3D Mario RPG game. And I'm not talking about Mario Rabbids. I'm not talking about crossover games or anything. Give me a straight up Super Mario RPG 2. Let's go. Anyhow. Your next game.
This one here, I think, sticking back in time, this is another Sega Genesis one.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought it was amazing. because I had Nintendo RPGs up till then, and while I loved the original Final Fantasy and I loved the original Dragon Warrior, aka Dragon Quest nowadays, when I first played this one on Sega Genesis, it was amazing, and it had a character death in it. Final Fantasy VII gets all this love and hate because of a character death, but as far as like I know, now it could be one earlier than this, but as far as I know, there was a character death in a game way before Aerith.
If you say what I think you're going to say, you're going to make me sad. Go.
But I loved Phantasy Star 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
honestly, I thought you were going to say 4, and I was like, Alice! Okay, sorry.
No, it was Nay.
Yeah.
And that when I lost her in the game, that they had a whole like cutscene and everything, which for that point in time, any cutscenes you were just like, holy cow. And
yeah,
it was
jarring.
It was jarring. Like it changed everything because she was like one of my strongest characters.
Yeah, she's a beast in battle. Give her claws and just watch her wreck.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was great. I loved that game, and getting to the end, the last boss was really, really hard. And how many good things there are to say about it. It takes place 1,000 years at the original Phantasy Star,
right?
Which was on the Sega Master System.
Did you ever play the original Phantasy Star?
I played it briefly.
I played it through, and oh wow, that was a trip.
That's another game where the dungeons were like they benefit.
Yeah,
it's the same thing as Shining in the Darkness.
Yeah.
Play it. You can play it. That's actually on the Switch now too, with the map while you play.
Oh, good.
So if you want to play the original Phantasy Star, play it on the Switch. You won't be disappointed.
Good.
But Phantasy Star 2 had an amazing story of the big Dark Falls is coming back if I remember correctly, and
which you don't understand until like. You have no idea what you're doing in the beginning. It's not like here's the bad guy, go get it. Like Dragon Warrior. Dragon Warrior was like must kill the Dragon Lord, go. Phantasy Star 2 was just like you're a dude, go figure stuff out.
But the setting is like one of the reasons I like it so much because if you look at your traditional RPGs, it's medieval swords and sorcery. Even though Final Fantasy has taken things into more of like steampunk area.
Yeah. This was definitely a sci-fi RPG.
It's a sci-fi RPG.
Oh gosh.
You actually have a cyborg on your team, and he requires different healing than everybody else.
Yeah. I think the one thing that always still stands out to me to this day with Phantasy Star 2, which honestly was part of my list of things I had to cut. Because I wanted to keep it on the list, but like I would have top 100 RPGs at this point if we had to go. But the one thing I do remember is the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the man attacked with a scalpel and he swung it like a sword, and it was awesome to watch. It was just like, what are you doing?
Surgery.
I love it.
Go ahead.
I love it. Okay, so this game actually was, I believe, my first actual PlayStation RPG.
Okay.
And not only is it my first RPG, it was my my first entry into the series of these types of games. Found out later it was not the first game, but I thought it was because the way they hyped it up. Tales of Destiny.
Yes.
Oh, dude.
So out of all the Tales games, you chose Tales of Destiny. I chose
Destiny.
Oh.
Because, again, it's the starting point. For me, it was a matter of I pretty much liked all the Tales games I've played, every single one of them. Arise being the latest one, and Arise being awesome.
Arise is an awesome RPG.
Yes, it's fantastic. But Destiny was the one that got me into it all, and it was here's a brief story. Here's a boy Stan. He wants to be a hero. He wants to just be a warrior. Wants to go do stuff. All of a sudden, he finds a talking sword. And this sword has an attitude problem, which is awesome. And the two of them go on an adventure, and they make a bunch of friends, and they find that he finds that there's 3 other magical talking swords, and they're 4 guardians of the planet, and they chose 4 people to protect the world. And it ends up being the 4 people who end up being in your party. And the battle mechanic, I think it's the first one that actually threw me for a loop. Because it was like...
Because it's real time.
It's real time, but it's also like... It's not just like... real time in the sense of, okay, well, what am I going to do? It's real time in like... You don't go from a list of what you're going to do. Are you going to attack?
Yeah.
Are you going to item? Are you going to spell? Are you going to do this? If you want to attack, hit the X button. You want to do this super art, you hit up an X, down an X, left, right, or X, or just straight up the circle button or whatever. Like, it blew my mind when it came out. And then it carried through the rest of the Tales games. That's their combat system, and that's amazing.
It's like a beginner fighting game combat system to some degree.
Plus, it actually had... I don't know if you knew this. It was really cool. When you get towards the end of the game, there's a special dungeon you get to go through. And I didn't understand it at first when I went into it for the first time. But as I got through it and as I got to the end of it, I realized what it was. So, Tales of Destiny is made by Namco Bandai.
Yes.
Or, sorry, not Namco Bandai, Bandai Namco.
Either way.
I have issues. Anyways, Bandai Namco. And this dungeon is a recreation of the Tower of Jiraga. You actually fight the dragon of the Tower of Jiraga at the end of the dungeon with just the main hero. Like, that's all you have as you go through this dungeon. And it was so cool at the time. Like, it really stuck with me. So that game's definitely on my list.
See, I never played Tales of Destiny. I played Tales of Destiny 2. That was my introduction to the game, which is actually Tales of Eternia.
I was going to say, wait a minute, push up my glasses, it's Tales of Eternia. But no, Tales of Eternia, man.
That was a great game.
That was a great game, but that was also one of those, like, if you didn't know the special mechanic to pull off at the end of the final fight, you lost all your characters. Everyone died, and you just start to fight over.
Yeah, we live in an era where that's not such a big deal, though.
Right. But at the time, I was like, the only reason I beat the game is because I did the thing, and I didn't know I needed to do the thing ever in the fight. I was just like, desperation move. Oh, I saved the game. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to change it up. We're going to go from swords and sorcery to Western.
Uh-oh. No Western RPGs, though.
There are Western. No. I mean, the as a setting.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not a Western RPG. It's still a JRPG.
You're gonna jump the gun on me, aren't you?
No. Well,
yes, you are.
I didn't play. I played the previous entries in the series and didn't think they were very good, to be honest with you.
Okay.
On the PlayStation. Well, I shouldn't say that they didn't think they were very good. I just couldn't get into them very much.
All right.
But the third one,
yeah,
the setting and the graphics and the way that it was presented, it had this really nice cel shaded look that looked more like watercolor, like background to it and everything, and very, very cool looking. And so I thought it was great, and that's Wild Arms 3.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was like, what Western game is he talking about? And then you started talking about, like, oh, it's this one. Okay, yeah. It's got to be this one.
And it was just great. The puzzles that were presented in it took some thought, and the characters were great. You started out by playing each one of the main characters separately through their little storyline to get up to the point where they all meet, and the battle system is unique enough to where it's fun and engaging, and I had a blast with it.
Yeah.
The main characters, Virginia, Jet, Gallows, and Clive, it's really cool, and it's all set in a Western kind of setting, and it's been a while, so I can't remember the story like verbatim. I just remember I had such a great time with the game. that it earns a spot on my list.
Well, it's funny you say that, because as I thought about my list, I was looking at it, I had to change out. So okay, I was going to say Dragon Quest XI, because Dragon Quest XI is a great game.
Dragon Quest XI is a great game.
Yeah, and the fact that when the way the story is fully written, and it makes you actually go through the game again after you beat it, like
the prologue is actually really important.
Yeah, yeah, it's just like you played the game, you beat the final boss, cool. Play again. There's more, and then you get the true ending, the actual true ending of the game. Like, oh, dude, and it was a cool twist on everything. But that's not gonna stay on my list now, because I'm going to put Wild Arms 1 on my list. Because not like, yes, it had the Western theme to it, but it wasn't a Western. It was a Western sci-fi plus fantasy. It was all three genres. Because you had a character who casted magic, you had a character who swung a sword, and then you had a character who shot guns, dropped bombs, had roller skates, and then when you needed to get somewhere in the world, you summoned your giant magical golem and walked there, you know? And then when that wasn't enough, you got your flying mechanical bird from the Golden City of El Dorado cartoon, and you just went nuts. The game was amazing, and the glyph system was so cool. It literally was, we got a glyph system, you pick what glyphs you want to buy, and depending on what glyphs you combine, that's the spell you're going to buy. And
Okay.
Yes.
I don't remember that. But.
Yeah, and you could buy all the spells for Celia. You could buy them all. It was very doable. But it was just that simple fact of like, okay, well, if I combine fire and water, I'm going to get some really cool explosion. If I do fire and wind, I'm going to get some lightning spells. I'm going to do some death spells and all. And it was so cool. Each character was so unique and so different from each other. And then as you ran around the world, you had to solve the puzzles in the game using the tools that these characters had. And each of them was so integral to how the story played out. That you needed each person and all of their power-ups in order to get through proper. So good. So strong. That's why I am going to bump off Dragon Quest XI. For that simple reason.
All because I brought up Wild Arms 3, huh?
Yes. Like I said, I've played so many RPGs, so many JRPGs, that trying to narrow down my list was almost... It was a nightmare. So, like I said, lists are going to constantly change, constantly move through.
Well, at any rate, I do have to say that I'm amazed that we haven't had the same game on our lists yet.
We're going to.
Are you sure?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm going to go with one that is decidedly darker than all the ones we've talked about so far. Being
My Little Pony, RPG.
Yes. PWN, by the way. This is a decidedly darker game where people, where you enter, the main characters enter this, the darkness, basically. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but when you're in this world, all the people who are not basically you, or Persona users, because the game is Persona 3, they call it transmogrifying, and so everybody's in caskets. So you're walking around this world, and everybody who's not a Persona user is in a casket. It's really weird at the beginning. And the way that the way that Persona users activate their powers is they have these special guns that activate their powers, and they shoot themselves in the head. So after you get through that kind of understanding of what's going on, the story there is really, really deep. And I'm not usually one to play a game where you have one dungeon and that dungeon just keeps going.
Yeah.
I'm usually not one to do something like that, because the game is very centralized to a large degree around the
main character.
The school, really.
Well, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so you can get to a certain part, and then when you get to a certain point in the story, you can go to the next section and things like that. And it's like Diablo, where every time you go into it, it's different.
Yeah. Okay.
But the cool things about the Persona games not only are the different personas you can get, and each persona gives you different abilities and different attacks, but the fact that the game very much keeps you on this schedule of, this big thing is going to happen on this day, and your decisions that you make between now and then actually matter. If your character's not leveled up enough, if your character, you don't go fight enough to level up, you won't be strong enough to beat the guy. You might as well start the game over.
Right. I'm glad you like that mechanic. I don't like being rushed in my RPGs.
I don't think it's rushed. It's about making conscious decisions that every decision that I made felt important. It's not like games nowadays where, although I love Tales of Arise and it's a great game, I could go. It gave that sense that the end is coming, or that something is going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's that sense of urgency to a certain degree that you don't get in modern games a lot of times, because you have this big thing that's supposed to be happening, but I'm gonna go and deliver 3 carrots and pick this guy's fields and to slay this one bad guy who's bothering somebody way on the other side of the world. The big baddie that's going to destroy everything can wait. I need to go do this.
Well, I guess, I think timing and side quests is fine, but the overall concept of you better hurry up and move or everything's gonna die.
Counterpoint.
I feel rushed. And
Counterpoint.
I don't like that.
You love Valkyrie Profile.
I hate that it's timed.
But you love it.
But I hate that it's timed.
But you love it.
But I hate that it's timed. Again, stating that I love the game does not change the fact.
I'm just saying that you can like games that are like that too.
Yeah,
but anyway, I thought Persona 3 is great and
Valkyrie
worth your
Profile
time.
2 does not have a time system, so it made it far better in my opinion. Anyhow, so the next game on my list, I also have a Final Fantasy game on my list. Oh wow, big surprise! But I don't have the same one as you. I don't have Remake, even though I did think about it. I actually had to think about which Final Fantasy game I wanted to put on my list, because there's been all of them have had the ones that have come out when I was growing up had such an impact on me.
12 was almost the one I put down.
Right. I was gonna say 4 was so iconic and heroic. 6 was so tragic and serious but beautiful. 7 was the beginning of something. 8 just pulled me in such a way, and then 10 is probably one of my favorite ones too, even though the sequels and and then obviously the MMOs, and then in 12,
actually I like 13, believe it or not.
Final Fantasy, I never played 13. I'm just talking about the ones I've done.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
The one I had to put down, was Final Fantasy V.
That's an interesting choice.
Well, here's the reason why. Yes, there's a linear progression to the story, but you have a job system. You can change what class you play per character. Each character could be something completely different every time.
That was the first time they introduced the job system.
Yes, it is.
But isn't that's I never played 5, but isn't that the game where if you get hit, if you want to beef up your defense, you get hit? Oh, that's 2. Okay.
That's 2. No, 5 is straight up like Final Fantasy 4, except it is, hey, we also add a job system. Want to be a knight? Cool. You get some job points to build up that class. It's what led into Final Fantasy Tactics becoming a thing because of that job system. It's what they continued and carried over when they started making Bravely Default. Bravely Default, Bravely Second, and Bravely Default 2 all have a similar type of job system, where you fight monsters, get the points, level up the class on top of your character's experience, and then become awesome. So that's why 5 is on my list, because it's such a great game in that respect. It's the beginning of something awesome.
That's good. It sounds like a good choice. I never played it though.
You really should.
So I want to backtrack here to Sega Genesis era one more time here.
Sure.
This was a game that I got that was so revolutionary for me at the time because of all the cutscenes, the depth of the story, the everything in it was unlike anything I'd played up to that point. Like I said, I didn't have a Super Nintendo, and if I remember correctly, Super Nintendo RPGs didn't really have cutscenes, like specific movie cutscenes.
Oh yeah,
and things like that. So
I think I know what you're gonna put up, but I want to hear you say it.
And the way that it was presented in the story, and the way that you beat the game at the end, where you fight the big bad, but then you have a section where you actually have to save her in a different way. The girl who you're been trying to save for the latter part of the game. I thought it was interesting and different. It took me a little while to figure out. I got frustrated for a moment, but this game definitely made it. It's one of my best. If I had to say, it's probably my favorite RPG of all time, and that is Lunar Silver Star Story.
Yes, that was actually on my list of things too. Not Silver Star Story, but Silver Star Story Complete when it came out for PlayStation.
Yes,
because I have not. Even though I have Silver Star Story, I have not played the Sega CD version to completion.
They actually came out with an updated one with new graphics and everything on the PSP. So it's the complete story with all that stuff.
Well, that's Silver Star Story Complete, right?
No, it's a new one. I actually have it over on my shelf right now.
Huh.
When I'll show it to you when we're done.
Yeah.
But I loved the story.
It's such a great game.
And the fighting system, you may not have known, but like this is also a time where, traditional turn-based was the dominating thing.
Right.
So when in the early 90s, when I saw my characters on my screen, if you did your ability, they would actually move around the screen, and I thought it was random for the longest time. But you can add, if you push a direction, if you push a direction that you want them to go, the game will actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
that actually affected certain attacks too, like against your party. I know there are certain monsters, like if you got like your tanky character up in front, he would take the hit because he'd be the closer target. And that actually mattered. That was actually really cool.
And when you're trying to fight through the tunnel to get to the magic school, and you're fighting the Sphinx-looking things there at the end. I died at those so many times until I found out that I could move my character. Because I thought I was just going to have to go and grind and level up. But I had my save wasn't far back enough. So it took me. So I had to kill them.
You suffered.
I suffered, yeah, and I think I made it out of there with like just a few hit points, but I ended up doing it. And at any rate,
so
fantastic game.
I was gonna say, and you know what makes that thing even more fantastic? For the Silver Star Story Complete. When I bought it, I got the special. They only had like really one edition, but I got it.
Working Designs was amazing.
Yeah, Working Designs was so great. I still have him. He's still.
I know what you're gonna say.
He's still safely secured. I've pulled him out maybe twice.
Did I give that to you?
No, he was part of my package when I bought him.
Okay.
I have a Galleon punching doll.
I have 2 Galleon punching dolls.
You got 2 of them?
Yeah. Because when it's not down here, it's
how'd you get 2?
Well, story time.
Okay.
So, I used to be a manager at GameStop,
mm-hmm.
and at one of the managers' conventions, they were there promoting Silver Star Story, and they had a bunch of Galleon punching dolls, and I'm looking at them like, I want some Galleon punching dolls, and. They at the end of the managers convention, they were just kind of like giving stuff away, and I like ran over there, and I was like, "Can I get a couple?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so I got a couple. So I have one that I play with that's kind of fun,
and then you have the one who's just forever entombed in his case.
Yes, exactly.
I may be worth something one day.
That was also the managers convention where I picked up some 3.5 D&D books.
Nice.
So
nice. Okay, so my next game.
Coming down to the last 3 for each of us.
Yeah. Well, this is my numero quattro, whatever. I actually had trouble deciding if I wanted the first or the second one. But, cheater. Stop looking at my list. But I ended up going with the second one, mainly because of the fusions ability. Breath of Fire 2.
See, that's another Super Nintendo one I never got to play.
So here's the fun thing. The Breath of Fire series is by Capcom. However, the first Breath of Fire came out by Squaresoft. They were the ones who got it published to bring it over stateside, which was really crazy at the time because you could find Chun-Li from Street Fighter practicing in a hidden room in one of the towns. Because it was supposed to be a Capcom reference for a Capcom game, but it was by Squaresoft. So at the time, people were losing their minds that a rival company had, But no, Breath of Fire 2 was it was fantastic, and what ended up happening was you had a particular character. He was a frog fencing man. He was a fencing frog guy. Wasn't that great on his own, but he had the ability to fuse with the other party members, and he would become this beast of a man, and he would just destroy stuff. Like there was one, I think, like one of his moves was he became like a super buff guy, and he would slice his sword across the ground, and he would cut the earth in half, and that would hit all the bad guys. That was one of his attacks. But that wasn't just the fusion system. There was a fusion system where like these magical spirit women, you could use them to fuse together, and like they affected the main character. And the dragons he would transform into, because surprise, main character's a dragon in Breath of Fire.
Who would have thought?
I know, right? But yeah, so depending on when he would transform, his dragon would be whatever he was, whoever he was partnered with in the fusion system. So his attacks were different. It was so awesome. For me, the only thing that kind of threw me off was at the very end of the game, you kill basically a character who's claiming to be God. And it was like, wait, what? And at the time, for me, that was like a new concept. I wasn't really into the that idea. So it was jarring a little bit, especially because like he's so powerful. He's like pretty much dropping all my party members in the story, in the cutscene. So I have a one-on-one fight with God at the end. It was kind of weird. But the game, everything up until that point, all the characters are so unique, so amazing. I had to put it on the list.
All right. Well, we made reference to a game in this series not too long ago.
All right.
But one that I thoroughly enjoyed, not only for some of the platforming that it actually had, but the fighting system too, because they took the fighting in the first game. It was 2D fighting system. In this one, they went to a 3D look on the PlayStation 2. Thought it was amazing, and it also is also based in Norse mythology. So Norse mythology is my favorite mythology of the big three: Chinese mythology, Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology. Give me Norse mythology. I love Norse mythology. And that's Valkyrie Profile 2.
Yeah, I was going to say it.
Yeah.
I actually said that earlier. I mentioned that one.
Yeah. But that one made my list. I think it's amazing. The idea that you have one of the Valkyries inhabiting the same body as just a regular girl, and the juxtaposition and the way that they have to interact with each other is just hilarious and awesome.
And just the amount of surprise about the character knowledge you learn from like all the big reveals. There's so many reveals in that game. It's like, what? I wasn't expecting this.
It's great. The voice acting in it was really good.
I don't know if you knew this though. If you put certain characters together, like certain Mechwarrior together, they had special intros.
Yeah, and they had special interactions too.
Right. Well, I actually had one that I was like, the intro was so long it started going off while I was fighting, and it was a 3-person dialogue. It was one of the few 3 persons in the game. And it's basically like this: like you get a mage who's like an evil mad scientist man, and you get a man who is upset that his his love interest was experimented on and murdered. And then you have that girl, or all three involved in the party. If you put them all three in the party, they have a very awkward conversation right before you go into battle. It is so messed up.
That game was great.
I loved it. I love that game.
You know, some of the, honestly, as far as like graphics on the PlayStation 2, that's actually noteworthy because it was a very pretty PlayStation 2 game. It was very pretty. Very late in the PlayStation 2's life cycle.
It was a late game.
2006 it came out, but it was just awesome and worth going and playing, and strongly suggest it.
My next game, I'm looking at my list, and if I do the counting right here, uno, dos, I have 4? Yes, 4 Square Enix games on my list.
I don't know how many I have on mine.
This one is special. For the biggest reason is that the soundtrack is still haunting my brain to this day. It's so good. Like, I think, like we do all these. We're doing a top 10 list. We talk about other top 10s we want to do. I think at some point we need to do top 10 video game soundtracks because some of these are just. Secret of Mana. Secret of Mana was so good. It was the first game. It was one of the few games on the Super Nintendo that made use of the multi-tap, because all three characters could be played. I've never seen it happen, except on a modern day YouTube channel. I've seen it, but like back in the day, no one ever talked about playing all three together.
Was there? I don't recall there ever being a Super Nintendo multi-tap.
Yeah, there was.
Oh, you know what? Never mind. I do remember now because they had to have it for Bomberman.
Right. And you could use it so you could play Secret of Mana. All three characters, the boy, the girl, and the sprite. It was an active time battle system. Each of the characters were unique in their own way. The story was very compelling and beautifully done. The game made excellent use of Mode 7. Whether you're getting shot out of a cannon or flying across the world in a dragon, the Mode 7 was beautiful.
Mode 7 being a special graphics mode that the Super Nintendo was capable of at the time. A way of like it was kind of like a way of introducing 3D, but it was all 2D planes. It was like advanced parallax scrolling.
Oh, I'm gonna drop us again. All right. But no.
but you can make them larger, smaller, rotate them. It was something that the Super Nintendo could do.
Yeah, and it was. They did an excellent job of making it beautiful, and making the world feel alive. And just the story was great. There's obviously one song on that track. I'm just like, oh please, I don't want to hear this song anymore. And that was in the haunted cult house. Anyways, it was a great game. Very strongly recommended. And obviously, like, it's also another game that began a following. It's kind of a theme I've been seeing with my list. Like, I'm liking the games that start the followings. But everything about this game has always had a special place in my heart. So.
Yeah. So I'm going to start to talk about my next game. This one. And, you talked about Tales of Destiny.
Yes.
Before. My favorite game in that whole series up to this point it's a tough one to pick. I have a couple that I actually don't like.
Well, we also have a couple we have to finish.
That's true, but
now, let me guess before you go further. Let me guess. So it's a Tales game, obviously. We've already said that. Yes. So it's Tales of. Is it a V or an A?
It could be either one of those two.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
In this case, it's an A. Tales of the Abyss.
Tales of the Abyss.
Tales of the Abyss is an amazing game.
It's honestly one of the best. One of the best ones.
It's great. The fighting, it was like, I think the first one where they made the more 3D, but it was still like a 2D fighting layer in front of you. Mm-hmm. But you could go up and down, and they had these things called Field of Phonons. And in Tales of the Abyss, there was the 7 Phonons. Mm-hmm. And each one of these Phonons was just another name for types of magic. So you had
Right.
ice, wind, fire,
Yep.
lightning, all that kind of stuff. And so they create these fields on the ground, and each one of your moves that you had would either leave a field on the ground or consume
react.
it.
Yeah,
or,
say react to it. Yeah.
and make it stronger. And so if you played your characters right, you could have these fields of phonons of various sizes, and you could you make use of them for massive damage. Honestly, the story wasn't as strong in this one, I don't think, compared to some of the others. I thought it was still really good. And I thought the Abyss, when you find out that the world opens up underneath you,
Yeah.
and there's a whole nother world beneath you that is covered in abyss that can kill you, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
It's like a miasma thing.
Miasma, that's it. That was amazing. It does, though, have like one of the worst characters in the whole series in Anise. I hated her.
And you taunted and tortured me about her all the time. I hate you. I hate you.
Whatever. You liked Guy, and you played Guy.
Guy was the bomb. All right. Anyways, I was gonna say the thing that's strong about Abyss is the main character starts off as literally one of the worst characters in the Tales series because he's a whiny, self-indulgent, self-centered, narcissistic. I can't say it, egotistic. Whatever you want. He's a brat.
At the
end of the game, he is the hero everyone wants.
Mm-hmm.
He has literally the best character progression you can get out of a person. It is amazing.
And if you don't want to play the game, which I suggest you do,
if you don't
want to play the game, they did make an anime series. You can go watch that too.
Don't even do that. Just play the game.
And
Make sure that you do this every time we played, because we played this game together. Every time when we sat down, we listened to that intro every freaking time.
It was a good intro. Yeah.
Did you know that's actually that's a song by a Japanese band, but the electric guitar is not in it? Some brilliant hero of the internet found both versions of the songs and interlaced them. So you actually have the guy singing in Japanese, but he's singing on top of the electric guitar. And it's so good. I've had it on my computer for at least a decade now. It's in one of my lists of music I listen to. So
nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you want to do this one first? Okay. So, I'm being asked to jump around on my list, so I'm going to do that. Special request. Top of my list. Top dog on my list at the moment. I think he's kind of my top dog, period. Surprisingly, a Square game. Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is so good. The story is so solid. The artwork is by Akira Toriyama. If you like Dragon Ball, you're gonna like Chrono Trigger. The game has several different endings. An RPG with several different endings, meaning you don't play the exact same game twice unless you want to. You can go around and find different ways to end the game. You can fight the final boss at several different points in history because it's a time-traveling game. And he's different each time. The story is so complex. And there's a character you can or cannot get, depending on what you do. There's also a character you can or cannot lose, depending on what you do. If you don't do the story in a certain way, you'll end up... There's like a total of 8 characters. You could end up with 6. Thankfully, the best character in the game is always in your party once he joins you. And that is Frog.
Another frog, huh?
Frog the Knight.
He's
the most honorable character in the game. Even the NPCs are like, I cannot match that guy. And people think he's some fabled hero, And if you don't know this by now, if you don't know the spoiler, shame on you. Go play this game. He's not the fabled hero. He's the fabled hero's like brother, and he's more honorable than that guy. And he's just so amazing, and the fact that his combo attacks are amazing. His abilities are amazing. One of his spells, I think Naruto ripped off because it's a giant frog that jumps down and bounces around the screen, and that does damage. It's so good. It's always going to be on any list I put for RPGs. If I could put JRPGs on that list, it's going to be Chrono Trigger.
It wasn't Naruto. It was Pervy Sage.
No, okay, I was talking about the series.
I know.
Anyway, go ahead.
The only reason I decided to do this is because I saw your list, and this is the only game that we both have on our list. So
I knew it was going to be on our list. I knew it was going to be on yours.
It's a fitting end to the list, and
it is.
It's an amazing game that is tragically stuck to the Dreamcast and the GameCube.
Shall we say it together?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Skies of Arcadia. Absolutely.
That is. I remember getting that on my Dreamcast, and when I first put it in, like, the concept was really new. The idea that you had, sky pirates and, flying around on your ship.
Yeah, there was no flat Earth. Everything was floating in the sky.
Yeah, everything
was in the sky.
Yeah, and the main characters and what they could do, and the anime style of the attacks and everything was beautifully realized in 3D. One of the first games to show facial expressions. By today's standards, it's very meager, but in that
is mind-blowing, yeah.
At that point in time, it was amazing.
The ability to augment your airship so that your ship battles.
The ship battles, yeah.
Were different every time. Oh, man.
Yeah, and the Vice, Aka, and Fina all had different
They were completely different characters, and
yeah, and then eventually going into space and learning where Fina's from, and taking and ultimately, defeating the big bad and everything.
And honestly, it still is in my brain bank, in my data center to this day. I can pull it up every time without fail. Sword of the Dark Moon, Dark Arts. When the final boss starts pulling that move off, you have a panic attack because somebody might die.
Yeah.
It hit that hard. That game was so deserving of not only more ports, but sequels. And unfortunately, the only sequel that comes out for Skies of Arcadia, technically, is Valkyria Chronicles.
Which is a fantastic game.
Yes, but that's for a different conversation.
That's definitely in a different top 10.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely in a top 10 though. But they make an appearance as units in that game. They are two of them are soldiers and one of them is a medic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a shame. It's a shame. It's an utter shame. Sega, hear me. I've been hassling you on the internet. I've been twittering you, and you still won't listen. Give me more Skies.
I can only agree with that.
I just have to get savage about that. Give me more.
If a Skies of Arcadia 2 ever came out, they would instantly have my $5,000 if that's what they wanted to charge for it.
Yeah. But they would also have to supply me with probably a fresh set of underwear, I think, at that point. I think I would probably crap myself. Oh my gosh! So that's it. That's our top 10s. We've gone extra long today, which is actually normal size for most podcasts, but not us. So, we've always been trying to we don't want to eat up a whole lot of your time. But before we go, I want to rapid fire off some honorable mentions. Super quick, all right?
All right.
Because I had to, just so you all know, I wanted you to understand just how much of a hassle this list was for me. How much I had to go through.
At the end of the day, I'm impressed we only had one game that was on both of our lists.
I am too. I am very impressed. But here we go. My list. The games that weren't on my list. Silver Star Story Complete. Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 6 and 8, 7 Remake, Mystic Quest. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest was definitely going to be on my list. Lufia and Lufia 2.
I'm surprised one of those didn't make it.
They should have. They were so good. Legend of Dragoon.
I never played through Legend of Dragoon.
Oh, so good. Arcana for the Super Nintendo was very unique in its own right. Bravely Default, like we mentioned earlier. Golden Sun. Golden Sun was great. Yes, and Golden Sun 2 was not bad, but 1 was way better than 2 in my opinion. Earth
set in the same world as Shining Force, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. I don't think they are.
I think it is.
We'll have to do some research, or someone could tell us in the comments below. Earthbound. It had to be a notable mention. Robotrek. Yeah, okay. I love that game. I mentioned that with Biomotor Unitron, but Robotrek was great. Phantasy Stars 2 and 4. Seventh Saga.
Okay.
For the Super Nintendo. That was a great game. That had a very unique battle system. That was very cool. Mm-hmm. Beyond the Beyond for the PlayStation.
Beyond the Beyond. That's the one with the single tower, right?
No.
Oh, that's Azure Dreams. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. Azure Dreams. Yeah,
that's trash, by the way.
That's not trash. It's just hard.
I hate that game.
And Ghost of the White Lion. I had to get a rare one on my list. Ghost of the White Lion for NES. I had it as a kid. It was a great game. And while I was thinking about Beyond the Beyond, and Thousand Arms. RPG plus dating sim. What could be wrong? Plus, one of your characters is a big, beefy man with a sword, and one of his abilities is taunt. What does he do? He sticks his sword on the ground, hops on it, and wiggles his butt at the bad guys. That's just hilarious.
All right, well, if I had to put some honorable mentions on mine...
Yes, do it.
It would be Grandia 3 for sure.
Oh! Well, and 2.
And 2. Dragon Quest 8.
Yes.
Was a great game. And then
Dragon Quest 11.
Dragon Quest 11, of course. Yeah, I played through that. And then, of course, all the Tales games. Arise, Zillia 2. There's... Berseria, yep. Vesperia especially. Vesperia is hilarious. I love that. Yeah. That cast is hilarious.
Symphonia.
Symphonia, of course. That's the one that people will mention the most. I liked Symphonia. I think it's a little overrated, though.
I like Symphonia. I just don't think it's as good as Abyss. So I'm glad you put Abyss. I'm glad you put Abyss on your list.
Yeah.
Anyways, any others?
That's just Phantasy Star 4, of course.
And
I'm sorry. Lunar 2, of course.
Eternal Blue, yes.
Yeah, and several of the Final Fantasies that don't need to
be. And but the thing is, there's so many JRPGs, and a lot of them are fantastic. Shadow Hearts, for the PS2. We could sit here forever. This could be a way longer podcast than it already is.
Persona 4 and 5.
Yep. Yeah, you love those.
Oh man, love me some Persona.
But yeah, we've already taken up a lot of time. We did say we were going to go long today. We did warn you guys last week. Sorry if this is too long for you, but we just want to share. It's just a moment for us to share our passion for video games. Obviously, there's been some news this week. We're not going to touch on it.
Maybe we'll catch up on it.
Catch up on it. But I think we should do stuff like this more often, though. I like being able to say, hey, let's talk video games, and just talk video games. And then we can also talk news and say, yeah, these people are stupid. Why?
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's our lists. What are your lists? I'm very serious. I want to see you guys in the comments. I want to see you guys give us your list. And if you guys mention any games we have not,
which there are many.
Which there are many. But if you guys put any on your top 10 list, and don't just go out of your way to put them on there. But if they're legitimately in your top 10, and they're on your list, and we didn't mention them, might mention them in the next podcast. Just kind of, oh yeah, those are good games too. But that's us. Well, it's been a long one today. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting us in every way you can. We appreciate it very much. Still looking for other avenues to get us going. Monster's actually on the internet now. Yay!
Monster_Punter
at Twitter. So tweet him, bother him. You tweet me at MattFinish for now. When I change my name, I'll probably let you know. I don't know. I will let you know. I'll probably have to change all that Twitter stuff too. Ugh. Anyhow, that's us. I'm MattFinish.
and I'm Monster Punter.
Thank you so much for listening. You guys have yourselves a fantastic day. Stay awesome.
Take care.
Later.